All right, we are live. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you notice, I'm not wearing the helmet right now because I want to be able to read all your comments in the sidebar, and I can't see a thing in this helmet. So I am Vader Reviews, aka David Overholt. This is my good buddy. You know him, you love him. He's the man of a thousand voices, and the best one is his own. He's got this great creative spirit to him. My good friend Jamie Costa, he's joining me here today to talk about Flubber. So say hello to the good people of the interwebs.
Hello, interwebs people.
So you may notice he's got his Flubber glasses on.
That's right.
Spared no expense. We got the green little title card bars down there because we're talking about a great movie from 1997. I remember when they were advertising this film when it was brand new. You were seeing the movie trailers. I think I was about 11 when this movie was going to come out.
Really?
And yeah, it took me back watching this because I watched it last night to get ready for this little review, and that was the first time I'd seen it since it actually came out. We rented it at Blockbuster when I was a kid, and
Yes.
same Blockbuster we rented the Nintendo 64 from for the very first time. So I have a lot of fond memories of that Blockbuster. I wish it was still around, but I think it's like an office now, like some kind of legal office. But yeah, we rented that movie, and then it was never on the shelf ever again after the first time we rented it because so many people were watching it all the time, I guess. But yeah, it was directed by Les Mayfield, released by Disney and Great Oaks. You were telling me something interesting just before we started about Great Oaks. Why don't you tell all the fine people?
Well, I just noticed that it was another occasion where it was a smaller studio paired with Disney. I want to say they were involved with even maybe some animation beforehand, but this was their last movie, and which doesn't really make sense because I think this movie. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we can do a search on it. But I mean, I think it did okay money, but it didn't seem to have, like you were mentioning, like didn't really feel like it had Disney's big support.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
interesting, I find, because it was a 1990s Robin Williams movie, and
Yeah.
it's pretty magically fun, for
Hmm.
kids and stuff, and a
Hmm.
little bit of dose of. I can't wait for us to talk about it, like stuff to think about for later, and more
Hmm.
relevant to topics now.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like you can't even really find the DVD of this movie in stores, right? Like I never really saw it around much. I know a lot of times they don't have a lot of DVDs in stores, but they do in my area still. And you see DVDs of like all the other Disney movies, but this one they never really had this one for some reason in the store. Michael, my older brother, he just found this at Vintage Stock a couple weeks ago. Um,
Huh.
so it's kind of strange. I was looking up some information on it to get ready for the live stream here, and I saw that actually it didn't get very good reviews at the time,
Yeah, I got a
which
lot of harsh
surprises
review.
me. And I think I might know why though. I think I might know why. I think what was going on is maybe the reviewers they wanted more zany Robin Williams with all of his voices and characters that he does, but he actually plays a very heartfelt, kind of sad character in this movie. It really shows
Yeah,
his range as an actor, and he plays
you
a very
bet.
brilliant character. And I think maybe people were a little disappointed at the time because they wanted him to be a cartoon character, basically. They really wanted that wacky fun that he usually brings.
Well,
But in
so
a
did
funny
studios, I'm
way,
sure.
yeah, in a funny way, he was almost the straight man to the little Flubber itself, the animated Flubber, because they
Robin is
gave all the
definitely,
wacky
yes,
stuff to the Flubber. And
absolutely. You're right. It's
yeah,
I actually noticed that while watching. I watched last night for the first time in a while, and I that's what I love about Robin Williams is that
Hmm.
when he does roles, there's he's showing up for a real reason. I think
Hmm.
he did this movie because he is very interested, from what I've studied and gathered, well beyond that of the entertainment space. He's able to fall into some roles like this one
Hmm.
quite excitedly because he would go to quantum physics conventions in real life, and
Yeah.
he would talk. He was like best buddies with um I mean, he played Oliver Sacks, and that's, famous neuroscientist. And
Hmm.
Robin was very fascinated with metaphysics, or not metaphysics. What's it called when we go subparticle? Um,
Uh, all I can think
quantum
of
physics.
subatomic, but quantum physics. Yeah.
Yeah. He was just very fascinated with a lot of
Hmm.
things. He's quite a genius, in that sense of study too, and curiosity. So I think he liked roles like this, and AI and all these other, a lot of these roles that he personally felt attached to. He never, I don't, his later films, he would do movies that meant something to be
Hmm.
discussed. He was
Yeah.
very big on AI, and I don't know if you noticed the whole side plot of like kind of AI. I would imagine
Hmm.
AI, robotic.
Yeah. I
In
still
my
need to
mind,
see that movie AI with him. The
oh,
Bicentennial
Bicentennial.
Man was it called? Yeah, I need to see that movie.
You
That's
should.
I've still never seen it.
I almost thought about recommending it because it's very relevant, and
Hmm.
um, yeah, it is funny though going to our talks about like when we listen. David and I love music. We love chatting soundtracks and catching things and stuff. But like in the Bicentennial soundtrack, it's what we were talking about the other day. James Horner.
Hmm.
You hear the similar strides in the music
Hmm.
sometimes.
Yeah.
That was the one that I was like, and I love James Horner to death. Like literally, he's one of my top favorites.
Hmm.
Top three, if I had to say top. But like, I was sitting there like I watched Bicentennial not long ago, like a year ago, and I was like, my gosh, this is unapologetically sounding like a lot of his other stuff. And I was like, I
Uh-huh.
wonder if he got lazy on this one or if it's just fitting because it does fit. But
Mhm.
sorry, tangent. But
Oh, it's fine.
the soundtrack on Flubber from Danny Elfman reminds
Mm.
me of Men in Black,
Yeah.
other
It
'90s kind of.
I was thinking it's funny because it's like it's somehow a mix of Men in Black and The Simpsons. I think it's because if you notice, the movie has
Right.
this almost timeless vibe. Like the
Yep.
dad with the kid that's scared, and he's like, "Okay, little Jimmy, basically, there's nothing outside your window." He seems like a caricature of a 1950s dad, basically.
Yeah.
And it seemed like they were trying to make this movie feel quasi timeless.
Yeah.
Um, and the
It
music
kind of had
really.
Dennis, like a Dennis the Menace
Mhm.
meets like Tim Allen's the Santa Claus.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, some of the same guys that worked on the Santa Claus worked on this movie. Um,
Mm,
and through the whole part where he's flying around at night in the clouds with his car after he gets the Flubber engine made, all I could think of was like, man, this really seems like the Santa Claus, the visuals of the clouds and everything. And
feels,
an
yeah.
interesting thing is, it's like they weren't sure they could get Robin Williams for this movie, and they had a short list of other actors that they were going to go with.
Well,
They
Disney had
were
to make
think,
their amends with Robin before they could
mhm,
get him.
yeah. So when they didn't know if they could get him, they were considering like Christopher Lloyd was one of the choices. He would just seem like Doc Brown making Flubber, so he would have been good, but I'm kind of glad it wasn't
It's
him.
Flubber!
Yeah, it would have been funny, but another was Jeff Goldblum, which he could have been very good. as an absent-minded professor as well, I
I
think.
I'd like to hear him like talk about Flubber and this subatomic particles mixing in with the elastic, fantastic material.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
would be good and fun.
So John Lithgow is another. John Goodman, of all people, he doesn't really strike me as a scientist. He's more of a blue-collar guy. But Tim Allen was one of the others on the list that they were thinking, like, can we get him? Again, he doesn't really
Fun,
seem much like a scientist to me, but
Funny enough, I could see Tim Allen stepping in and showing some range and playing
mhm.
the bad guy in this. The bad
Yeah,
guy, the
yeah,
antagonist.
the dude. Let me see, what was his name? I have it written down here on a notebook. Christopher McDonald. He actually did not want to play this part because he was like, I don't want to play another Shooter McGavin. I just
Yeah.
did that. I don't want people to think that's all I can do. But then when he heard Robin Williams was playing it, he was like, okay, I got to do this because I gotta work with Robin Williams. He'd wanted to work with him like his whole career basically, so he took the role even though it was very Shooter McGavin, to be the bad guy in this movie just so he could work with Robin Williams.
John
But it's
Hughes.
interesting.
John Hughes was on this project.
Hmm. Yeah, he
I
was
found
he was
that
one of the
very interesting.
writers. Yeah, I didn't know he had anything to do with this originally. In the very early stages, Steven Spielberg was attached to produce, but he kind of dropped off the project after a while.
Makes
Uh, which
sense.
is which is why they have the car fly in front of the moon as like a little like thing, like a little
Well, is that
homage to ET.
that's funny because I think Spielberg produced on the Men in Black movies as well.
I think so, yeah. Um, something I thought was kind of interesting about this film was you can see how if you look back watching old movies, old kid movies, you'll see the trends in cinema because um, Home Alone came out. You had the two bungling villains that did
Oh,
that big slipping fall on their back pratfall.
there is a lot of
And
Home
then it's
Alone, isn't
like
there, on
it's
this?
like, ooh, kids like that. Okay, so 1996, we make 101 Dalmatians. In my opinion, Disney's only good live action remake. With Glenn Close because she's great as Cruella de Vil. You got Horace and Jasper. They're doing the Home Alone slip and fall stuff.
You
So then
bet.
in 1997, we got Flubber. So what do you got? You got two villains that are getting bonked on the head by golf balls and bowling balls doing the slip and fall on their back in the driveway that totally
Or just
feels,
two
you know,
two grown men having physical comedy because you also find it they're not villains, but the mouse trap. If you remember Mouse Hunt,
yeah, uh-huh,
what is it?
Mouse Hunt. I
Mouse
think
Hunt.
it was Mouse Hunt. Yeah, that was
That
like a
did.
whack. That was a wacky film. I
I
haven't seen
love
that in
that.
years.
I love that. I love Christopher Walken. He gets to have some fun in that too.
Hmm. Yeah.
You gotta
So
think
it's
like a mouse.
he can say anything and it's like weirdly comedic just because of his bizarre timing that he has. I don't know what it is about that guy. But yeah, it was funny to me watching this movie again after all these years because um this was still a time frame when audiences hadn't seen like everything there is to see yet. Because there are
Right.
clear moments in Flubber where they're very much being like, "Hey, look what we can do now with
Yes.
computers," And you and me were talking before the thing came out, before we started the stream, and the whole Flubber dance that they like advertised the whole movie on, where the little Flubber guys are dancing around with each other. It really reminded me of those old Chips Ahoy commercials and the Ritz commercials.
Mm.
Um, because back in the day, kids, anyone watching who's younger than me, CGI couldn't really handle characters too well, but it was really good at shiny, reflective stuff or inanimate objects and making it move. So in a lot of commercials, you would get computer generated stuff of like like the Chips Ahoy commercials with like where the chocolate chip cookies are dancing around and spinning and everything. And that's kind of what the
Oh,
Flubber really made me think of when it was doing that whole sequence.
oh, 100%. I think that's such a good reference on it. Either the same people or somebody who had the vision. We'll never know, but there is a fun, definite, interesting like bridge to that
Mm-hmm.
scene. I agree. That must it makes me want. I will tell you right now. That makes me want to pour a glass of cold milk and grab some Chips Ahoy cookies because
Mm-hmm.
those
Yeah.
commercials worked on me, man.
I loved those commercials when I was a kid. I loved the drums, I loved the music, but I also just liked not knowing how they were making those cookies do that, because to me, I thought they looked real when I was a kid because I'd
Yeah,
never seen them. So I was
Cheez-Its
like,
would
how
do
are
it
they?
too. Do you remember the
Yeah.
Cheez-Its commercial?
Hmm. Yeah. There were so many weird food commercials that way. Back in the day, they don't really do stuff like that anymore. It's like the '90s were just a weird, fun time where they kind
Yeah,
of, in the early days before CGI became like a bad word in VFX, everyone was just all excited about like, wow, look what it can do. We can see stuff we've never seen before. And as weird as it sounds, with Flubber, it was showing the audience something it had never seen before. And the effects were kind of the showcase of the movie. And like I said earlier, it was kind of split down the middle of Robin Williams almost was the straight man to the Flubber spectacle of the VFX in a way.
absolutely.
Um, and something I'm not sure why they didn't do rather. I was just thinking about it earlier tonight, and I was like, the Flubber was kind of like a living little character. Why didn't they just have Robin Williams voice the Flubber and let the Flubber mimic things? Like do mimicry and like funny little Flubber impressions, and like let him be wacky and crazy and put his wacky zany humor into the Flubber, instead of just casting a voice actor to make the like Flubber noises. Like let him kind of play the Flubber too, because like they would have Weibo put her little screen up and imitate, like play movie clips and cartoon clips to show her emotions of what she was feeling. And it's like they could have had the Flubber kind of learn that from Weibo, which would have given her a connection to the Flubber in a funny
Oh,
way.
that's
And
interesting.
then it could have given Robin Williams a chance to play a little bit more as the Flubber, but then to still be serious as the scientist guy. And I think maybe it would have gotten some better reviews that way, because people wouldn't have felt kind of almost like cheated out of the wacky Robin Williams humor that they really wanted, potentially. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's a good point to discuss on. I'm sure Robin he he it's funny because I'm sure he doesn't approach it with thinking on those terms, which is
Mhm.
he doesn't feel like he's cheating anybody out of anything except himself
Yeah,
if he doesn't get to play a movie for a reason why he wants to
yeah.
play it. And now I'm betting he played this um, because John Hughes, you know, put in there some AI references on the robots and
Hmm.
because that's not none of that's in the original. Uh,
Yeah.
the absent-minded, yeah, like you were saying, Robin plays the absent-minded professor, which is the name of the original film. He plays
Hmm.
him like like almost too good in the sense of like this almost became a sincere drama.
Hmm.
I actually almost preferred that.
Yeah.
You get taken out. Obviously, really, you realize that that Disney did not want anything but a huge bucket full of kids every weekend because
Hmm.
they had the golf ball and the bowling ball bouncing off their heads and stuff.
Yeah.
But but something tells me that Robin may have leaned on the drama interest of the opportunity of playing this professor who truly does forget. Because I can tell you firsthand, he even foreshadowed a lot of his concerns, his worry about the mind and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And he's on Billy Connolly. His wife is a psychologist, and he would mention, like that is a fear of his. So I think that's what
Hmm.
drew him to the role, is to be able to play somebody whose mind. Uh, it's almost like they were scared to say there was an actual condition. Um,
Yeah.
but I love how he puts it into writing, and he executes that scene where he's like, I realize I'm not absent-minded from this, that, or the other. It's like he goes, I'm absent-minded because I'm in love, because of the effect
Hmm.
of her love, or whatnot.
Yeah.
It was a really nice. It was a nice way to seal it, And
Yeah.
I
he
don't know.
he does so much heart in that role, and like I said, it's like you feel bad for him actually in this movie, because
Yes. Oh yes.
it's so I think maybe that's what audiences weren't expecting. They were expecting like a wacky joke a minute, when it was like, no, actually we're going to make you feel something with this, and then the flubber will do some funny stuff. And I
Yeah.
think that might have been the thing that didn't quite, people weren't expecting.
The
Their
the girl.
expectations were subverted by accident, kind of a thing.
I love subverting expectation, because then
As
it.
long as you do it well.
Yes, and as long as you're doing it for right reason of instinct
Hmm.
and intuition, and not to get into caught up pattern.
Hmm.
Subversion is more. I like to think on the surprise terms of that. Like I
Hmm.
think that's why Robin Williams speaks to me, is because he's going in there not to say it the same way every time. He feels it. You see, I think that's what makes great acting, obviously, is if you can feel what they are feeling, what they are emulating, and it's not a performance. It's really
Yeah.
strangely a well captured vulnerability for
Hmm.
the occasion, which is acting and all the things. But you really do sit in the seat of emotions with performances like his.
Hmm.
But yeah,
His That scene he does when, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen like what, a 30-year-old movie or whatever it is by now. But with the when what happens to Weibo, and he's talking to the little robot. It's like there's
yeah,
so much genuine emotion there.
there
He's not
is.
playing it like, oh well, this is a kids movie, so I should just kind of, be kind of goofy with it. Because you can tell when actors are being like, okay, I'll dial it down because this isn't a real serious movie. I won't really
Oh
put
yeah.
too much into it. He put some heart, and he put some soul into that, and it was a really good scene. Um,
When he
the
talks to and he goes, "No, Weibo, this is a human thing." Like it's like you feel that, and you feel that more now, because now
Mhm.
we're talking like that. We probably will live in a time where it becomes a talking point of kind of the Her thing about the movie Her, where robots and humans start to you know
Mhm.
have have a relationship.
Yeah.
We know that obviously on unorganic terms, but it is what it is. Like where that will become something attempted
Mhm.
or presented as an option.
Mhm.
It may or may not be what anybody would deem as viable or possible or whatever, but it is a discussion point that's now
Mhm.
more relevant, um,
Yeah.
especially as AI starts to become come into stages of what everybody's kind of keeping the eye on, of like when does the AI actually become a personality itself,
Mhm.
um, and have emotion.
Mhm.
And and weirdly enough, in this movie, it deemed itself to give itself a daughter.
Mhm.
And I don't know, there's also a Tinkerbell thing going on here with from Hook.
I was actually gonna bring that up. I have that in my notes. I was like, Weibo is kind of like the Tink of this movie because it's like it's the little flying sidekick who's kind of mischievous. She's kind of rotten at
Oh yeah.
times in the
Oh yeah.
movie, but she's also in love with the guy that she can't be with, just like Tink. And I found it interesting to find out that Jodie Benson, who voiced Ariel in The Little Mermaid, she's the voice of Weibo. So the whole time she just wanted to be part of his world, apparently. So, but yeah, it
Wow.
also like Adam Savage from MythBusters. He used to work at ILM and he built Weibo, and so and he also did some design and build work on episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And I noticed those little camera probes that float around in the background in the Senate, those little yellow probes, they kind of make me think of Weibo, but Weibo is first. They even make that same like
Oh,
noise that
dude,
Weibo does. So it's
I've got a
kind of
lot of
interesting.
I've got a lot of personal Weibo connection, inspiration, um, on Outpost between me and the
Mm,
Orb and Outpost. In
yeah.
fact, I realized subconsciously, I think I casted um, Steph Barkley's voice because when I was watching Flubber last night, I'm like, huh, like I always knew, and I always did think of it as like that kind of opportunity of inspiration for Outpost,
Mhm.
but as I listened to um, Little Mermaid voice on Weibo last night, I was going, wow, that's actually strangely close to what I go for the voice in Outpost.
hmm Which is it's a great short. I'm looking forward to seeing more from that. So get on
Yeah.
that because I want to see more of that.
Well, it's funny
I
because
really
it's
really do.
yeah, you'll see some more for sure. That's yeah, you've given some really good notes on that.
That's actually kind of where we sort of started our conversations a little bit. That and Star Wars stuff. So
Yep, that's right.
that's been a fun thing about these conversations we've been having. To you guys that are watching who might not know, we talk like every week about creative projects um and then we
Yeah.
also do the podcast, the Big Kid Energy podcast, which now right now you can find it on Jamie's channel. We have some updates on that. Not that I have some amazing audience I can send your way, but anyone who's watching who
Oh, no,
hasn't
no.
seen those,
Um,
check them out because they're nice. And we're going to be, I think you said you're wanting to kind of move that into Spotify eventually, which will be kind of fun.
yeah, so
um
that we can kind of have it at a have it in a proper place. I think people really like Spotify. I enjoy Spotify for, and you can do a video. It's a sign. It's a two-way podcast where it's like
mhm,
this. You can listen to it or see it, and yeah, it's good to kind of have a home, a new like a place to do it together
mhm,
onto.
mhm.
Um,
So for now though, you can catch it on Jamie's channel. So just a little plug for that because we talked about some cool stuff, and it's led to some discussions for some really cool projects that we're
yeah.
working on right now. Because getting in the mindset of talking about all these great old movies that we love when we were kids, it kind of has gotten both of us thinking of like, what would we like to make right now? Uh, Kind of like for family entertainment stuff, because we got other projects too that are not quite as uh I guess not quite as like family kid friendly kind of things. Nothing bad, but like we got serious stuff we're doing too, but like it also
David's
is
got
fun.
some dark stuff. Let me tell you
Yeah.
guys.
Well, I mean, kinda with the Avenger of Blood, that one's kind of darker. It's a little darker than I intended it to be. It was supposed to just be a quick sword fight, and now it's turned into like a whole story.
Talk about
So
subversions.
yeah,
That would be hilarious to have like the animation that we're working on, like out of nowhere. It's like pretty dark. It's like
yeah. I kind of question whether or not to like we're gonna try to have a little theatrical premiere for Avenger of Blood like we did with Fallen Jedi at a local theater.
That's
And I
cool.
thought, like, would it be too weird to show the Scarecrow cartoon first, just so it has that old
I
feeling of
think
like
so. I
cartoon
think
and a
people would
movie?
appreciate that.
But it's such a different tone because the Scarecrow is like adorable, old school Disney cuteness, and then this is like an action movie, vampire hunter film from that feels like it's from 2006. So,
Paradoxical intention. Just
mhm.
just give them something really different ahead of it. So it's like when you got Robin when he's comedy, but then he can turn that switch real quick and make you cry out of
Yeah,
nowhere, and it almost helps to be funny and then
hmm,
sad to get that
kind of
a greater.
takes you on a roller coaster of emotion. Um, but yeah, it's like it's really kind of cool. Um, Thinking back to the Flubber movie, watching it now as an adult, as opposed to when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Um, because when I was little, I remember just being really taken with how they made the Flubber move and dance and all the wacky fun stuff. And I gotta say, I miss the mix of the practical effects of like how they were like messing up the stuff in the lab that they would have to plan the ingenuity of that to have like stuff break itself and then add in the CG goo flying around ping ponging off the walls. Now they wouldn't do that. They just do the like all of it with like physics simulation, phony glass for the beakers that break. They just
Oh
do
yeah.
all of it, and someone would just stand in front of a green wall and be like, "Okay, act like oh you're ducking. Ah, something's flying around," you know. But I kind of miss the practical and digital blend.
Oh
Um,
yeah. It,
so
it,
it,
they did that in Men in Black too. If you noticed,
mm-hmm,
there's
yeah,
just this era of doing a combination that felt great, especially in the kids' places. A
mm-hmm,
movie that didn't quite work from what I hear, but I have never given it a fair watch, so I don't know. But I think I remember it from the trailers having similarities of that nature. The Inspector Gadget from the '90s. Do you remember that?
mm-hmm, yeah. I think I actually saw that one in theaters, if I remember correctly. One of the few movies I saw in theaters back then, and it was a. I gotta say, it was kind of a disappointment to me,
I
from what I
always want to
remember.
remake. I want to remake that one so bad. I think it'd be fun to redo, kind of
Mhm.
with some Jim Carrey Sonic,
Yeah,
attention.
that would be fun. I was thinking too. Speaking of Jim Carrey, he might have been interesting in Flubber as well, but I think there would have been the same. There would have been the same problem. I think of he would have probably played him more serious the way Robin did, and then people would have been like, "What? He's not wacky enough," because they would have been expecting the mask. But I think that kind of speaks to something interesting about the script for Flubber that they went ahead and they told a more emotional story with him rather than going for like the laugh, which would have been the easy thing with him. Because apparently he ad libbed so much in between takes. Will Wheaton, who plays the main villain's son, he said he ad libbed so much between takes, like on secondary takes, that he said there's like a whole other movie that you could have made with all of his improv. And it's like I kind of want to see that now. It's like can we get a cut of that too, like the ad lib
Well,
tape, because that would be interesting to see.
now you're making me wonder if there's like Flubber outtakes.
That would be fun to watch. Because I mean, he had to have been like busting up the cast like the whole time because he was so silly. And
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? I guess so, because like some of the takes may have been like, well, we can't put that in a kids movie because he'll do that from time to time, even when he's working on a family movie. It's like his brain, he tells a joke a little too fast, and he's like, oh wait, yeah, I can't use that joke here because this is a kids movie. So, so yeah, there might have been the gritty R-rated cut of Flubber that we never got to see. Who knows? But it's I miss that era of film though, where there was a clear goal from the filmmakers to be like, look at the spectacle of what we're making. Um, because I feel like spectacle has become almost like CG. It's almost become kind of like, the bad word with filmmakers, because every filmmaker's like, well, I think the best visual effects are the ones you never notice. And it's like, well, I'd like to not notice an effect because it looks terrible. Like, if you notice an effect because it looks really bad, like, yeah, that's a bad visual effect. But like sometimes I feel like noticing an effect because it's just such a wow visual, it's like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because that's what Star Wars gave us with those gigantic spaceships flying overhead. It's not like they were being subtle when Star Destroyers flew over your head. They were trying to wow you.
We
And
don't want to. We don't want anything but spectacle of our eyes and ears for that moment when uh, Jango Fett releases the thing out in space and it goes
mm-hmm.
wah 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 wah
Yeah,
wah.
yeah, those seismic charges were so cool. It's one of my favorite Star Wars sound effects. It's such a cool moment they had with that.
Wow.
And
Love that.
yeah, I think there needs to be a return to some spectacle and some fun, and not like, everything doesn't have to be completely grounded and gritty. There's a place for that, I think, but I feel like people have maybe gone a little too far with what I call like the drive-by visual effects shot, where it's kind of like, a good example of this is in the original Star Wars. When you're in the cantina, George Lucas shows you little vignettes of all these aliens. So you can see, wow, this is a wacky space bar full of a bunch of aliens. But then when you compare that to when like Finn and Han get to Maz Kanata's castle, it's this big disorienting, like sweeping camera shot that's just kind of looping and panning around stuff, and it goes so quick you don't even get to enjoy any of the actual like practical creature suits that they made for the film, because they zoom past it so quick, because they're like, well, we don't want to linger on this too long, because that might feel like we're trying to show off. So then it's like you spent millions of dollars, and all these craftsmen poured their heart and soul into like, I'm gonna have a creature in Star Wars, and then you don't even get to see it. I think there
Yeah.
needs to be kind of a balance between those two mindsets where, um, like,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't have to just stay on something for 10 hours to be like, look at this effect shot, look at it, but like, but
Taste
don't just
it.
blow past it either.
Oh yeah.
And Flubber
Star
did
Wars.
that. I felt
Yeah.
like it let you see stuff in a nice amount, but it didn't overstay its welcome. But what were you gonna
Yeah.
say about Star Wars?
Well, yeah. But you're right. All these movies, like I. uh I mean, we were even kind of talking about it in Jurassic Park, um, where when the long necks kind of come up and I mean, I personally would have liked to have just looked at that for just a little longer. I remember there's
Mm-hmm.
such beautiful little moments that I'm like, oh, I could have just watched even the distanced shot of all of them right after he says, "Welcome to Jurassic Park,"
Mm-hmm.
and then when it shows those far off shots, I'm like, I love that shot so much. I was like, can we
Yeah.
just kind of keep going? Can we kind of keep going? Shots of that nature, like all around
Mm-hmm.
the island for like about a
Yeah.
good 5 minutes. I would just, at the time, especially, I would have just watched and been like, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe some brilliant filmmakers will make a dinosaur movie someday where we get to see the dinosaurs a little longer. You never know. It could happen. Um, but yeah, there was so much in Jurassic Park that I was like, ooh, but don't cut away from that. Just, yeah, it's so cool. Um,
Yeah, you just kind of want to
because
appreciate what you're feeling and what was built
mm-hmm,
for it too. Like that's what I love about. Oh yeah, but you're right. The spectacle on this was very fun. Even in the car flying scenes, very much
mm-hmm,
a little bit of an enhancement on like we were talking about the Santa Claus kind of
mm-hmm.
sleigh rides and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And I love the visuals that they did too. It was such an inventive little visual when he was up there with the lady who was his girlfriend. Um,
I thought
when
she was
when
just great, by the way.
it's one of the rare times too that it sounds funny, but it really struck me that it's like, I think this might be one of the only comedy movies I've seen where like the love interest was actually the same age as the as the dude, instead of her being like 20 years younger and a supermodel or something like that. It's like that's usually what happens in these movies. But like she actually looked like, yeah, they're the same age. They could be good together, kind of a thing.
Well,
And
that was needed to happen because in the plot, it's the rivals of high school, and
mm,
I think they're all in the same class too. The bad
mhm,
guy is in the same class as well, um, and of course they both work at the college.
uh-huh.
They that was a little weak. Is that whole plot about
Mhm.
like got to save the college? Like you didn't
Yeah.
feel like the college needed to be saved. It
And
just
then the problem was, since the main villain was the guy that like was calling in their loan, when he's like, "Well, hey, I'll pay you a bunch of money for Flubber, and then I'll forget the loan." It's like, okay, the movie should have been over right then. There shouldn't have been this like, but no, we're not gonna do it because you're the bad guy. When it's like,
I no
but you owe him money. I don't
I
know.
I'll say this. Yes, the loan thing is like there should have been a solve on that
Hmm.
about. I think that's why they wrote it the way they wrote it though, is to pinch down on Flubber because Flubber's
Hmm.
um yeah, again, they didn't go into the reasons why that the college needed to be shut down, right? They
Hmm. Yeah, it was just like,
kind of
well, it's
brushed
gonna be. Yeah. What would have been interesting if they would have done, in my opinion, since they made the Flubber kind of alive, and he didn't know how that happened. Weebo was alive, but he didn't quite know how that happened. She was this beautiful accent. So was the Flubber. It might have been more interesting if the reason he won't just sell the Flubber to the rich guy is like, I can't sell it. It's alive. It's a living thing. You can't just use it to like profit on and like basically like put it in a little flubber cage and use it as however you want. It could have been interesting if they had it be like he doesn't understand how this flubber kind of came to life. He thought it would just be an energy source, but something more happened when he used his hair as the biological
Yeah.
building block. And that would also explain why the flubber could have had some little Robin Williams wackiness going on, because it's part of him. um and then there could have been some other way he made money with the flubber later on in the movie, where it was like, well, there's something cool they can do with the flubber that's not like, you know as corny as it might sound, enslaving the flubber or whatever, since it seemed like it was kind of alive. I think that would have been a stronger reason for them turning the guy down than just like, no, you're the rich villain of the movie, so we're not going to take your dirty money, that kind of a thing,
Yeah, yeah, they needed to help highlight why it's like it's like I don't know, any kind of movie where you're like you don't like personally, I wouldn't want to hand off the keys to a really beautiful new energy, opportunity to help a lot of people out with. I wouldn't want to hand it to somebody who sends mobsters out, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to pressure me take to have their kid pass my chemistry class.
Yeah.
Like I would also be like, yeah, they don't deserve to be the ones who have a say in what to do with this new thing that's great,
Mm-hmm.
and could be good invention for mankind. It's kind of like it's like what we're scared about for AI. You're hoping that
Mm-hmm.
it's in good hands.
Yeah.
AI, are you in good hands? um,
Yeah. But yeah,
but
it's yeah, if they could have kind of punched that up a little bit more than just like, oh, he's the bad guy because this is a kids movie and he's the bad guy of the kids movie.
Yeah,
Um,
because you're right. His reasons were not really invalid for why he was shutting
mhm,
down the school. He's like,
right.
I mean,
Like,
he's like, I've been paying and nothing's going on. If anything, he should have been in on it. He should have been like, yeah,
mhm,
how can I help?
mhm, yeah. They I feel like they might have needed like a third party villain who was doing
Oh,
something else, maybe. I don't know. Either that or just make it the moral question of the flubber came to life somehow. I don't know how it did, so I can't sell it to you now. I thought I could when I thought it was just an energy source, but then now I've discovered it's alive. And then maybe that would also explain, not that I'm, trying to go off on a huge tangent being like a script doctor here, but like something that wasn't explained was why Weibo let the flubber out of its containment thing when
oh, I
Robin
know why.
left. So
Um,
why was that? I didn't
Will
really catch the
Weibo was
reasoning.
Weibo was trying to sabotage
Mm,
because the point is Flubber, she arcs with Flubber. She doesn't really
mm,
care about it, and then till
mm,
later,
yeah.
she kind of it's kind of like her little brother. It feels like to the younger Weibo.
Mm,
Um, but at that point in the movie, he is trying to win his human romance over,
yeah,
and
that's
he's
true.
going to do that with Flubber.
Hmm.
And he's going to the game, and I think it's when he's going to the game and everything, and then like
Hmm.
and so if she ruins a night with Flubber, she ruins the opportunity
She
with
ruins the chances.
yes,
Okay. Yeah,
because
because
that was
it all
that's his way to bring it
okay.
all together.
That makes a little bit more sense because to me it almost seemed like he already left. He already had the flubber for the tax, so he was already going to go do what he was going to do. And then it was just like, well, she'll just let the flubber out while he's gone, just so we can have a cute flubber dance sequence. That nothing comes of it because it gets back in the container eventually. And then he comes home and she's like, "Hey, how did the game go?" It's like, "Yeah, I'm kind of depressed." And then it's like the flubber didn't break anything. It didn't cause any. It wasn't like Gremlins. It didn't get wet and multiply and burn the house down or anything. It's just the flubber's back in its containment unit by the time he gets home. And it's like, so why did we let it out? Well, so it could dance. Why? So we could put it on the trailer. That's why. Because we want people to watch Flubber. That's almost kind of what the sequence felt like to me a little bit. It's a very cute
You know,
scene.
that's not. I would say that's probably pretty accurate.
It's kind of funny to me because it's like it's a very cute moment and it's what they built all of their marketing on, but it's like it has like zero impact on the plot. But I guess it is part of the spectacle that I was saying I wanted, so I guess I can't complain too much about it. But I saw someone commenting that he said I forgot Stottlemyre from Monk was in Flubber, but yeah, Ted Levine, he plays one of the heavies in this movie, and he does a good job with it because like the funny thing is he's very comical when he needs to be, but then in that scene when he smacks Weibo with the baseball bat, he just seems legitimately mean all of a sudden. He's not playing like a cartoony, let me pull some like cartoon kid movie bad guy faces right now. It's like he's legitimately just playing it like a mean guy. And it's interesting how movies used to do that a long time ago.
Same with Dennis the Menace. There's some parts where Christopher Lloyd's character and in Roger Rabbit where
Mhm.
there's comedy and stuff, but then like all of a sudden when the villain kind of is positions the kid in a position of like, oh my gosh, this is kind of dark,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
way they like you're like, oh my gosh, he really is a bad guy or whatever.
Mhm. I,
Um,
I I miss that because now in a lot of kid movies, there's this kind of funny feeling of like it's always going to be overblown, it's always going to be wacky, and like there's no subtlety to it at all. It's like if someone's the bad guy, they're the most cartoonish bad guy possible. If they're the good guy, they can do no wrong and they're the best ever because they're the good guy and they're the hero and everyone has to be in awe of them and they have to be perfect and great because it's like how the writer sees themselves and it's basically their self-insert character. Um, but in older kids movies like this one, it's like there were flaws to the good guys, and then there were moments of like legitimate acting from the bad guys where they weren't just a cartoon. But then also you had them getting bonked in the head with a bowling ball to make it funny from time to time. So it's like there was a good mix of stuff, and
Yeah. I
yeah,
wonder if it's. I mean, again, you do get some of that in Men in Black, where you kind of
mm-hmm.
feel the threat of the bad guy,
Yeah,
and it does like have dramatic tones in the air.
mm-hmm.
That's what I love about the music in this and the other and that movie of Danny Elfman music is that they just knew how to like. It was fun. It was playful. There's definitely
Mm-hmm.
funny and it's magic movies of the 90s kind of stuff with
Mm-hmm.
CG and alien stuff or whatever. But then there is also this like whatever the like kind of like heart moments.
Yeah,
And there is no heart moments in comedies these days.
yeah,
We just don't have it. It's just it's a little bit I think it's probably cheesy because they don't know how to pull it off and so they just don't.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um
It seems
yeah.
like now comedy is more like shock value comedy of like, whoa, I can't believe they said that, or oh, I can't believe they just did that. So they're just trying to shock you more than anything. And then for one thing, that makes your comedy age very poorly because once you've seen it and once you've been shocked, it's not going to be shocking anymore. So like the whole joke dies because like it's not funny the second time because it's not shocking the second time.
Yeah.
It's
And
kind
you
of like a
get that
law
a
of
lot.
diminishing returns.
That's right.
And
And
then when you're just, oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then when all you're concerned about is being as shocking and you know vulgar or surprising as possible, it's kind of impossible to turn around a second later and
Yeah,
then pull on your heartstrings because it's like, well, you just tried to like be as offensive as possible and insincere as possible, and like ironic humor is the thing they do now, where you can't have sincere, heartfelt moments because everything has to be ironic and mocked and made fun of. But Robin Williams, he could tell jokes, but still make you cry later because uh, there was some genuine heart to what he did. It wasn't ironic humor; it was heartfelt humor, which is the difference,
yeah,
I think.
yeah,
Sorry if
yeah.
I
You get a
stepped
little
all
bit
over
of
my
that in
point
Home
there.
Alone as well, huh?
Yeah, with the little boy and like those little moments in the church with the old guy when he's telling the story about how he got, estranged from his son. It's like that's a very touching little moment. But then you got the wacky stuff when the spider's crawling on the one guy's face, and it's totally goofy and like a living cartoon. Um,
Yeah, huh?
you need both, I think.
So there's a little bit of that in Jumanji too. I've
Mm-hmm.
noticed this actually. I think Hook keeps it pretty grounded uh,
Mm-hmm.
for a Peter Pan movie. Pretty
Mm-hmm.
grounded actually. Um,
Yeah.
Jumanji rides the line because there's definitely funny and or whatever, but it's kind of more like possibly horror meets
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like yeah, 90s, such an interesting time for comedy, adventure, kids, family movie, action. You know,
Mm-hmm. You know what I think it might have been? Not to be going off on big tangents and being the only one who's talking all night. I apologize if I'm talking too much. But I think maybe what it is Steven Spielberg. He cracked the adventure code. I feel like with Indiana Jones in the '80s,
yeah.
and then he also saw with Temple of Doom what happens when it goes a little too far for parents to be comfortable. So then
Oh
in the
yeah.
90s, it's like, okay, we learned the lesson of Temple of Doom. We don't go that far with it. But if we go this far with it, we can be safe because it can be like just scary enough to be fun and exciting, We can have some good adventure, but we won't be over here in Temple of Doom territory. And I think maybe that's why the 90s had this kind of style to it, because it's like it was the same dudes that were making all the coolest stuff in the 80s. They had just had kids now. So then they reshaped their Raiders of the Lost Ark lens into like, okay, but now my 6-year-old is wanting to watch movies. So I got to think about my kids now. So
Yeah.
then they kind of rein themselves in just a little bit. And that's why we got this tone of 90s movies. I think that's probably what happened.
Yeah, you're right. There's it. I guess there's a splash of it still in the 2000s, and then it kind of just gets a little bit eroded out after a while.
Yeah.
I can't think of
Because,
like other past the 2000s like heartfelt. There are some animations I feel that kind of encompass that spirit, um,
yeah.
like the Crudes, or there's a couple others. Yeah.
Mhm. I think not to blame it on this really, but I think part of the equation in modern days is superhero movies have kind of taken over every single genre for family entertainment. So it's
Huh.
kind of like you don't get movies like uh, Hook and um, Flubber, Jumanji, those kind of films anymore, because it's like, well, you're going to take your kids to the newest superhero movie, and we got a magic superhero, we got a science superhero, we got, an African superhero, we got a robot guy superhero, we got like any kind of superhero. We got a talking raccoon superhero for your kids. Like they've done every genre imaginable basically with superhero movies. So it's kind of like you don't get these other things. It's like, well, do they have a comic book fan base that spans the past 60 years that we can market on? No, then okay, we're not doing it because we want a name, we want an IP that people recognize. Where it's
Yeah.
like a longer time ago, it's just like, is this a cute idea? Let's make it and see how it does. And I think that
Yeah.
spirit needs to come back. I think,
Yeah. I think it will.
yeah. Kind of going off on weird tangents beyond
Well,
Flubber, I
I
guess,
bet
but
it'll. I bet it'll come and reshape. I think it will shape further. Rather, I think
mm,
this is true for all movies. I think we're gonna have a nice evolution over the next couple of years, throughout this year into the next and to the next, of becoming more independent. Like you'll see Hollywood, kind of shift off and shift. It'll shift. It's going to be, and I think it's going to be for the better of entertainment, of how projects get made, because now we're becoming a little more. Uh, well, there's a lot of reasons, but um, like, yeah, filmmakers like yourself, um, are going to be hitting mainstream, which is mainstream's not used to.
mm,
It's used to very packed up and put together, through the guarantees of what the studio deems, you know,
mhm,
which
yeah,
loses. That doesn't mean, I mean, studios all, they've had good notes on things in the past, but I
mhm,
just don't see there's not really good ping pong anymore between the true artists and visionaries of the projects and the business side, you know.
mhm,
So I think that's
yeah,
what's going to evolve and be part of, oscillation.
mhm, yeah. It's I think I think it's going to be interesting when you start seeing um, more people kind of making passion projects again,
Oh yeah.
because I think that was one of the things that made the Flubber movie work, was like you can tell that Robin Williams was very interested in this movie when he was making it. He didn't phone anything in. He never
No.
did, but you can see that he was shaping a character with this. He wasn't just being like, okay, I'm Robin Williams, I'll come in, I'll they're expecting me to do funny voices and impressions and talk a mile a minute, and that's what I do. He didn't do that. He made a character that he's playing,
Yeah.
and so it shows there was thought, there was intention behind what he did, and when you're as famous as him, you don't make stuff because you need the money. You make it because you're excited about the project and you're passionate about it. And it'll be interesting to see that happen again when people can start
You bet.
making things. So
And
give me one
yeah, you'll
second. My
start
cat
seeing that a
just
lot.
knocked. Yeah, give me one second. My cat just knocked down a lamp, and I need to pick it up before it starts a fire because it's an old lamp with a very hot light bulb in it. So give me one second. Entertain them with something while I,
Well,
while I fix this.
well, I'd love to hear from you guys. What kind of movies does Flubber remind you of? Um, like what kind of? I was thinking Men in Black. Um, and the score is the same and stuff. But like, what other movies um, give you remind you of the same tone, I guess, and strive. I will say, I think that is the critique on Flubber, is that it kind of doesn't know itself fully, but I do believe that is always going to be a result of what we were just talking about with how, you know, who runs the vision, I guess. Studios or the creatives. Yeah, Hook is one. Hook feels more grounded, I will say. It feels like just a step into a little more like real world. Hey, everything good?
Okay, I'm back. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. I I got it. I got it all figured out. So, and tonight I'm gonna break my one rule. I'm gonna have some Mountain Dew again because I'm
He's drinking
a little bit tired.
Flubber.
Oh no! Hope I don't start bouncing off the walls, but we'll see.
Melted Jello. Melted
Yeah,
Flubber Jello.
you know, it's kind of nice that we're doing this this way because if I would have reviewed this movie in costume like I usually do, I would have had to try to scour my brain for as many Jello and lime green puns as I could think of. So it's kind of nice not having to. Kind of nice doing this laid back thing. I'm not going to abandon the suit, but it is fun just kind of talking about a movie more freeform like this because I usually have to cut so much stuff out of my reviews to keep them uh, not being hours long like this. My rough cuts of my reviews are always like 45 minutes to an hour long, and that would be a long time to sit in the Vader suit. Um, but uh, but I'm back now, so sorry to interrupt what you were saying to everybody.
Oh, no.
Um,
Um, no, we were talking about movies. I was asking them if they could think of any that remind them of this type of, like we were thinking Men in Black kind of is like in this
mhm.
zone. I wonder what other movies kind of sit in this zone of spectacle, comedy, adventure, and heart a little bit.
Mhm.
Yes,
Batman
like
Forever. No, yeah, I'm joking.
what'd you say?
I'm joking. I said Batman Forever. Um,
Batman Forever. Oh, yeah, Page Master.
I have only seen part of that movie. I haven't seen it all the way through. Um, but I need to watch that movie.
Oh, dude, you would love it. Yeah, it's definitely in your world. Yeah, good call, Curtis. Matilda. That's what I thought of too when it was kind of like what you're talking about with the Chips Ahoy, moments and
Hmm.
stuff. Matilda has that scene as well where she's like dancing, making carrots go around and stuff like that.
I have
And it's
never
got
seen
this.
that movie. I need to check
Oh,
that one out too.
you should definitely give it a go for Mouse Hunt. Matilda is definitely in this Sandlot too. Yeah.
Hmm. I know
Oh
I
yeah,
loved Babe
David.
when I was a kid.
Oh, Babe.
I
Yeah.
that it's a totally different type of film than Flubber, but like it still had the spectacle of like the talking animals,
Mm.
um, which had never been seen before because they did the CG mouths, and I love
The
that movie. I actually reviewed that one a while back, but yeah,
I have not seen Babe in a long time.
hmm it's a cute movie. Lady who voiced Dexter in Dexter's Laboratory, she's the one who voiced Babe. I think she also voiced Chucky and Rugrats, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's funny how you hear like the same voice actors end up doing the same, like doing all the characters of a certain time frame of cartoons and stuff.
Well, it's because the
Um,
studios literally were like, who was the one on that famous one? Get him
uh-huh.
again.
Yeah. Yep.
I will never stop bashing the studios
Yeah. It's
ever.
just so easy to do. They make it easy. Um,
Well, because I'm
and
not bashing anybody in particular. I'm bashing a way of tendencies that are not what we hope for, what we want, and what we're fighting for, what we
yeah.
strive for. It's a hierarchy, gatekeeping, punish the artist, you know,
Hmm.
scene, and I'm very pro against that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just balance. You got to have a good balance between the two. You can't have it to where the artists just get to do whatever they want either all
Hmm.
day, and that's what we have to watch all the time is the mainstream, because then people are going to be like, that's just too much,
Yeah.
you know.
Then you get into kind of like uh then you can get into like vanity projects real easy, whereas kind of like, okay, I'm sure you had some big grand artistic vision with this, but you've got your head shoved too far up your butt with this, dude. No one is gonna want to watch this because sometimes people can get a little bit too high on themselves and be like, it's my art. It's like, well, yeah, but no one wants to watch that.
And the
You
studio's like,
gotta,
well, then the studio's like, well, then you can pay for it
yeah,
because
yeah, you gotta find there has to be that delicate balance between
oh
knowing that someone's gonna want to watch it, but also letting someone be creative enough to do something unique that you're kind of taking a chance on a
yeah.
little bit. Um, I
Bugatti's got a note that I totally agree. The Eddie Murphy movies of this time period were very much in the like the Nutty
Doctor
Professor,
Doolittle, the Nutty
Doctor
Professor, yeah.
Doolittle.
hmm when I
That's right.
was when I was a kid, I always got the Nutty Professor and uh, Flubber mixed up in my head because I watched the first Absent-Minded Professor from 1961 on Disney Channel, which is what Flubber was based on. So I knew it was the something professor, something wacky
Oh
with
yeah,
professor,
yeah.
and the Flubber. So then I started seeing these commercials for the Nutty Professor, and I was like, but Robin Williams is doing a Flubber movie, and Eddie Murphy's doing a professor movie, but like I didn't remember the professor being a big fat guy and Flubber. What does this have to do with Flubber? And it just confused me when I was a kid because like I didn't remember I didn't remember that it was two different movies for some reason. I don't My brain did something kind of weird where it's like I conflated Nutty Professor with the Absent-Minded Professor for some reason. Um
I can see how that.
so
Yeah.
but he might have been interesting in the Flubber thing too, but I don't know why my brain does that now, but like whenever I watch a movie, I'm always like I'm curious what it would have been like with the other casting when I find out, oh, this guy was almost in something. The kind of what if casting. It's like I wish we could get both movies in some cases because I wouldn't trade this one that we got, but I really would have liked to have seen a couple of those other ones, like Jeff Goldblum and Christopher Lloyd, especially. That could have been interesting to see.
Yes.
And part of me almost wonders if the critics would have been less harsh on it if someone was in it who they weren't expecting to be a certain way, because
Hmm.
then they might have watched the movie for what it was, which was more of a heartfelt thing instead of being like, well, that wasn't as wacky as I wanted it to be, so I didn't like that, kind of thing. because it was. I thought Flubber was a good movie.
It's yeah, it's definitely like it's not bad.
Mhm.
It's like put it up against anything that comes into the theaters these days, and you're probably going to want to go sit and watch Flubber.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
because at
It
least it's
had.
fun and
Yeah.
it's heartwarming. I mean, it gives you something.
Mhm.
You get to escape, you get to think, you get to laugh
Mhm.
genuinely. Even if
Yeah.
there are loopholes of anything to critique, you can't critique the fact that you're getting something out of it versus a lot of times what we're shoveled out at the theater.
Mhm.
You know what I was
Yeah.
thinking of? Airbud. Do you remember Airbud?
Airbud. Yeah. Airbud. Homeward Bound was another '90s classic as far as the kid movie scene went. Everyone was always watching Homeward Bound. So
But
much that I was actually kind of.
Airbud had like that CG effect coming into it, right?
I you know I think it might have been one of the sequels. I don't remember Airbud too well. I might not have seen that one when it was brand new. I might have seen that one later on
I only remember
TV.
it from long time ago. Um,
Oh yeah, Ethereal Dragon. He no, the Eternal Death Rex. Sorry, there's another guy that follows me on Twitter called the Ethereal Dragon. But the Eternal Death Rex. He just mentioned Angels in the Outfield was another good family movie from the
and
'90s.
it feels this way where
Uh
a
huh.
little bit of CG fun is spliced into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Angels in the
Hmm.
Outfield. I love that movie. Space
That was.
Jam, Beethoven. Yeah, good calls.
It's
Doubtfire's right in there.
a little edgier, but the mask kind of had the same funny weird. There's like kind of a
Yes.
living cartoon. There, I don't know. There's just a '90s vibe that
Huh.
naturally I'm nostalgic for it because I grew up in the '90s. But like, I kind of wish we could get that back. One thing I noticed thinking about all these movies, thinking back to them, is like the color grading in all of them. It's before digital color grading took over, where everything started getting this wash of like teal and orange on every movie. Or if it's a Zack Snyder movie, it's like gray or sepia. As much as I love his movies, it's like I would like a little bit more color from them because like you know black and white's cool, but I do like some color. But I miss that '90s film look where like there was still genuine skin tone,
Yeah,
and when it was nighttime, they just went out at night and they had the big blue stage lights off screen, giving like the phony moonlight, and you still got warm human skin tone from the street lights and everything, but it still looked dark. It still looked like nighttime. To me, it's like that's so much more natural than just kind of like, well, it's nighttime, so let's slap a blue filter over everything. And or like I don't know if you saw the Book of Boba Fett when he's in the desert at night with the Sand People. It's
yeah.
just so murky and gray. It's like you can't even hardly see anything. And it's like, guys, come on. I know it's dark in the desert, but like Tatooine has two suns, so if even some of that sunlight is bouncing off of a moon, you're gonna have like a double bright, uh, nighttime on Tatooine. Tatooine will be pretty bright at night, I would think,
That's a good
with
point.
two suns. And but you can't see anything because it's so murky and dark. It's like that might be realistic to nighttime, but like I gotta see something. Um,
That's no moon. That's
mhm.
a virtual wall.
Uh-huh. That's a volume. Yeah.
That's what they
Um,
call the volume.
yeah. So, but yeah, I miss the look of the '90s stuff, and there was such a wholesome feel to it too. Because like in the beginning of Flubber, something I noticed was just kind of like just the kid riding his bike through like an idyllic neighborhood. Now, like
Oh yeah.
I didn't grow up in a fancy looking neighborhood like that when I was little, but seeing that cute like dream neighborhood in all the movies when I was a kid, it just gave me a fun vibe of like, yeah, I'd like to live in a place like that. Maybe I will someday, kind of a thing. And it gives you this cozy, wholesome feeling. And
Yes.
I miss that vibe in movies because now they try to be so gritty and real and everything. It's like it looks like you don't want to live anywhere in in modern movies because they're like, but it's real. It's like, well, yeah, but that's why I'm going to a movie to see something that'll distract me from what's real right now. You know?
Remember, kids, life sucks.
Yeah, pretty much. Life bites the movie. It's like that's pretty much all of it now, and it's
Don't
like
forget to buy your popcorn and Coca-Cola. Thank you.
exactly. Um, so yeah, this movie is like I remember that there was even like a Jello tie-in where there was like
Oh,
a
is it?
lime Jello. There was like a lime Jello commercial where they had like the little flubber guy
I'm
trying to
gonna look it up.
dance with the Jello, but it didn't move, and he was kind of disappointed because the Jello wasn't alive. He thought it was more flubber or whatever, and
Flubber Jello. All right.
it was just there was a lot of marketing with this. Anything green
Really?
basically got like a tie-in with Flubber back then. I think it was some restaurant, I forget what it was. They did some kind of Flubber shake where it was like Mountain Dew mixed with some kind of ground up ice shake or something, and it was like uh but yeah, those were the good old days. Because back then you had something that was even stronger than Mountain Dew back then. I don't know. Does anybody remember Surge? The
Oh, I
Pop
do.
Surge.
Yes.
It's like I wish they still made that stuff, but it was so bad for you. They stopped making it because it was so unhealthy for you.
Oh,
Because
dude,
it
it's
had
so bad.
more sugar and more caffeine than Mountain Dew even.
They started to outlaw it in schools. I remember like kids were like, "You got any Surge?" You know, like
Yeah. I loved Surge when I was a kid, and
it
they
was
had
kind of
it. They
cool too. The
yeah they.
can was really cool.
It's funny. It's like this particular color green of the Flubber thing. Uh, that kind of like green to yellow color. That was like on a lot of stuff in the '90s. I guess that was like the edgy
Dude,
color that they thought like, hey, yeah, this really sells because there was a lot of stuff popping up with that bright green to yellow around the time
Gushers,
frame. Yeah, Gushers and Surge was like my favorite thing when I was a kid.
Gushers, amazing, man.
Hmm. Only the red ones though. I only like the red ones. The other ones that are kind of like fruit punch flavor, where it's like all the different kinds of. You'll get like a orange fruit snack, but then it still has like fruit punch flavor juice on the inside. It's a clashing flavor. I just like the red ones, but
Oh,
yeah,
give me all of them.
yeah.
I loved just smushing them in my teeth and pretending to turn into the big fruit heads that in
Mm.
the commercial.
Yeah, I remember those commercials. That was when like everything was like wacky, like in your face, like zoom in
Yeah.
and out of commercials. And there was always some weird old lady who was always grumpy, and she would like be like right into the camera, being like, "What are you doing?" And like the stupid kids on their
Yeah.
skateboards would be like, "We're drinking Surge," you know.
We're
And
riding
it's
razor scooters.
yep. And like the old lady would always get like knocked over and be all like, ah, you know. It's like I don't know why that was the marketing of the '90s. It's like let's zoom in on a grumpy old person, and then the kids will
Super
knock them
soak.
over. Yeah, but yeah, the '90s for me was like my favorite snack was Cheez-Its, a bag of Gushers, and a can of Surge. And then you'd sit
Dang.
there and you'd watch Big Wednesday on Cartoon Network to see the latest episodes of Dexter's Laboratory and
Yes.
all the wacky new cartoons like Two
Well,
Stupid Dogs and all that stuff.
that was something that they kind of were. At least this is what I love about the '90s as well, in the sense of types of materials that were being made. Of I love that there was so many professor movies in the
Mm-hmm.
'90s.
Yeah.
There's a lot of inventor, professor, that kind of stuff to me I think it's very interesting that we don't see promotion of astronaut or whatever these again inventors movies. I think even like A Beautiful Mind and stuff like that was coming out during the 90s, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. Yeah, The Nutty Professor. Um, but
In
in
T
that kind of those kind of movies for me are exciting, because I like, of course, naturally, we're going to find that in our neck of the woods with filmmaking and stuff like that
Mhm.
and pushing it. But in general, there's not a lot of kids being inspired these days to be inventors and
Mhm.
to go work out the world's problems,
Mhm.
Instead, it's like, sit back, just relax, just let us
Mhm.
take care of you. And it's like,
Mhm.
I think we should be encouraging kids to like think
You don't have
outside
to
the
think. We'll
box.
do it for you.
We'll do it for you. Just take this little pill and don't
uh,
worry.
yeah. Even in the TV realm, there was like Beekman's World and Bill Nye the Science Guy. The two they were like the two rival kid shows where it's like, let's learn about wacky science stuff, but we'll do it with crazy 90s camera work. And
That's a good
it'll
point.
it's like the whole learn something and be smart and get into the computer age. That was like a big thing in the 90s, and it's kind of lost now, that
Now it's like,
appeal.
let the computer age take care of
Hmm.
you.
And it's like, and now everything is done by algorithms where like a lot of people, they won't even search for a YouTube video they want to watch. They wait to see, like, is their phone going to bring something up, and they'll just scroll for a while and wait for the phone to send them something that maybe the algorithm has decided, like, hey, you should watch this, I think. Instead of me, I feel like I'm an old fart because I get on YouTube and I'm like, what do I feel like watching right now? Okay, I'm going to look up some behind the scenes documentaries on a movie, see if I can find that, or something on dinosaurs, or
And you
something on
arrived at that
animation.
thought on your own.
Hmm.
I,
I
I
didn't have
actually,
the, yeah.
I've been doing the same thing where I'm intentional about what I go to search up. I do not just pull up my YouTube and then be like, oh yeah, that's a good thing to look up.
Hmm.
Because then that's what happens. It's just after a
Uh-huh.
while you're like, oh,
Hmm.
like versus,
It's
yeah,
like,
I remember that. Oh, that's
uh-huh.
something I like.
Hmm.
It's like Captain America when he's like, I get that reference.
I understood that reference. Yeah.
I understood
That
that
being
reference.
said, if I show up in your feed, click on my videos. I'm not gonna fight the algorithm if I do show up in your feed.
I will
But
say, David, I love promoting David. I will do so till I die. He is somebody I literally look up. I my thing tells me if he posts a video, but like I like making sure I don't miss it, which is something I think is missing also in new television. In new, we used to have to make sure. We used to have to like
hmm,
literally think for ourselves and go.
yeah,
But I love the luxury of like. There's been a lot of good things, right? I actually have come across some stuff through YouTube's algorithms, probably
hmm,
us, and but but it's a trap if you let it take you every time. Um, Even when I'm listening to music now, I have to not let it. I did a lookup on this the other day. I was like, wait a minute, is there like a thing out there where the music, if 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 I give it up to something else to algorithm to me, can it put it in an order that starts to make me this way or that way, nudge me
hmm,
around in some form versus just be random, you know?
hmm,
And then I was like, you know what? I don't even want to be random anymore. I don't want to be shuffle. I used to love shuffle because it used to be pretty organically shuffled, like a radio.
hmm,
When you're listening to the
yeah,
radio, it's not algorithm. That's what's interesting about radio is it's actually like No, there's about 1,000 or more other people listening to that same song and catching it. Not
Yeah.
and then if you're catching it, you didn't get that, you get to put it to your occasion and not the occasion put it to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, Kool-Aid. Yeah, Kool-Aid and the Capri Suns kind of remind me of a lot of this
Summer day
era.
kind of feeling. There's just, I don't know. I feel like I'm going on way too many tangents of like, back when I was young, the world was better. But um, I do kind of miss the simplicity of just uh, enjoying simple things because you picked to enjoy it. I go back to that with the whole video store as opposed to a streaming service. Now it's
Absolutely.
amazing that there are thousands of choices, millions of choices with streaming services. But on the other hand, is going to sound counterintuitive, but the fact that you could go to a video store and the movie you wanted actually wasn't there from time to time, it made it so much more special if you got to watch it that night. And
Wow.
when the movie wasn't there, it forced you to pick something because it's like, well, we drove all the way here. We got to get something. And every once in a while, you found your favorite movie by accident because they didn't have the one you were looking for. And you had to look through the covers and you had to be like, okay, well, since we came all this way, we're coming away with some movie to watch tonight. Whereas with streaming, you'll go through it and it's like, well, maybe that one. I'll scroll back to it if I don't find anything else. Then you keep scrolling, and it activates. They've done studies and it's like it actually activates the same part of your brain that internet gambling activates
No, no,
because there's
I don't doubt that. Yeah.
there's the constant thing of like, well, maybe I'll hit the jackpot if I keep scrolling. Maybe I'll find something better, and you just keep going, keep going, keep going, and then you don't watch anything at all because
Or
you passed over
anything
five things
or
that.
anything new.
Uh huh.
It's so when you go to sign in on your platforms, a lot of times you're just like, oh yeah, that's right. I love Rush Hour 2 again and then again and again and again.
Mm,
And versus like truly for a good discipline in my life, I because when I was a kid, I did watch the same stuff over and over.
mm,
So when we started to get into algorithm age, I literally was a little bit like, nah, I'm not watching the same thing again. I did all that when I was a kid over and over and over and over. I'm just now back out of this era. So like I climbed into that era in mid to late uh 2020s and
mm-hmm.
or actually what are we at? No, I did it in like 2017, 2018. I just started watching uh new movies
Mm-hmm.
and being like to old movies. I was like, no, back out. I'm gonna try to watch something I've never seen, try to get
Mm-hmm.
new perspectives, all the stuff, right? And then I found a lot of favorites. I've come across new favorites or watching people and listening for the same way as I get my books that I read.
Mm-hmm.
I try to be very I like to almost challenge myself to get something from a place no algorithm could have given it to me. Like
Yeah.
none. Like
Mm-hmm.
if it gives me a sense of like it's cool, it's fun, it's unique to me, and I'm like, ha ha, to like computers being like, damn it, we didn't get to give it to him, like
Uh huh. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of a fun feeling. Well, because you hunted for it.
yeah,
You looked it down, like you tracked it down. And it's like, okay, I found this because I wanted to find something. It wasn't that something was put in front of me and it was just like, okay, I just swallowed it because they put the plate down in front of me. It's like, no, I went out, I tracked this animal down, I hunted it, and I got it, and I cooked my own meat over the fire. And it's like maybe it's a caveman attitude, but there is more of a feeling of like, yes, I accomplished this, because you chose what you wanted instead of having a computer choose it for you. It's kind of comes back to the whole Captain Kirk thing in the old original series of Star Trek. There was always like the computer that made society really comfortable, but it was like, but you're not living like men because you're not choosing. And if you fail, so what? But you'll fail like men. And he would always shut down the computer, and the people would be like, what are we going to do without the computer to make our decisions? He was like, well, now you'll actually live. And he'd leave. And I was like, well, thanks for destroying their society there, Kirk. But on the other hand, it was like, you can't have the computer live for you. You got to live yourself.
You
And
bet.
hey, this is getting too philosophical. We're talking about Flubber. Flubber, everybody. Robin Williams is a good movie. But
I think talking. I personally love talking this stuff because I'm. I think this would be amazing stuff for children. I as a child would love to think on these big things, but I was always like told, shh, 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 be quiet, Jamie. No, no, we're not going to talk about big, important mind. You know, just like philosophy, but imagination is part of that, and creative mind, I think, is a part of that. And I yeah, I love that stuff. You know what I mean? To me, that's where the good stuff is. I think that's what Star Wars is. There's all these bigger topics, but we're watching it in a more digestible way. That's why there's good content, good stories still in like those 90s mainstreams and stuff, and obviously into the 2000s a bit or whatever. And I'm sure there are still more that we're missing, but it came in truckloads in the 90s still of
yeah,
we got adventure fun, like, because Flubber, uh the new one versus the 60s, I don't remember the 60s one. I've seen it, but does it make you question like broader thoughts? Because
there's
it does in
yeah,
this new one.
yeah, he doesn't have a robot sidekick. It's more just about like, huh, I invented a weird thing, and now my Model T car can fly, and now we can cheat with Flubber and win the basketball game, and yay us, we won. And that's pretty much. I
Yeah,
think they might be trying to save the school in the first one. I don't remember, or they might just be trying to win the championship. I don't remember exactly, but there's no deeper feeling to the old Flubber. It's not a bad movie. It's a fun little movie.
yeah, but there's
But
no intrinsic ethics at
mhm,
play about,
yeah,
oh, if we find something that's a good thing for all people, where does that start to go
yeah.
towards this direction or that direction?
Hmm. And one thing I will say about the new version of Flubber is like I feel like they should have made a bigger deal about Weibo and him not knowing how she came to life and how she was conscious before she got smacked with a baseball bat and he lost her.
Wait, what is
Because
he? Yeah, talk about that. Like, what is there?
remember, like when she's just kind of like his sidekick through the whole movie. She's floating around. She's this amazing little AI companion. It's like she's totally alive. She has a personality, all this kind of stuff. But through the whole movie, he's talking to her like, "You're not real, Weibo. You're just a robot. You don't understand feelings. You're not a person, Weibo." And then she dies, and he's like, "Ah, she was alive, and I never knew how that magical thing happened. It was an accident. I tried and tried to recreate it, but I couldn't, no matter what I tried to do." And then he goes on, like after she's gone, talking about like how alive she was and how she was like this miracle, and he never cracked the code on how she came to life. He never understood it. But it's like, but I think that should have been there before, because then I feel like you would have cared even more when
On
she
that
was
topic? Yeah,
getting when she was dying. Essentially, you would have cared even more if you already knew how special and alive she was. But by him kind of treating her like, you're not a real person, Weibo, you're just a robot, you don't understand emotions
that's a
like
very good
me.
point. Because if you were to make Flubber now, that would probably be essential as
Hmm.
to loan to the moment later when she dies, and the kind of discussion at hand about a sentient,
Yeah.
robot.
Hmm. Because they make that point after she's gone, but I don't. Maybe they were trying to make the point of like he didn't realize it until she was gone. Like he didn't appreciate
I
it until
like
she
I
was gone.
like to lean on that as you said it. That's what kind of makes sense because I watched the movie last night in that moment thinking that works. Like I
Hmm.
was genuinely like sad too.
Hmm.
Um, because there is two different ways to play that actually.
Hmm.
There is, yeah, I think it works actually. Now that I'm thinking back on it, it's like that's not even think that's kind of like one of those things where it's out of sight, out of mind, as like, and
Hmm.
then it plants a seed in a different direction to the moment landed. When he's like, no, you don't understand human emotion, like to keep reminding us
Hmm.
of something that he actually will end up realizing is not true.
Kind of
And
going back on. Yeah.
yeah, and he
Yeah.
realizes, well, she's not human, but I definitely had something emotionally
Hmm.
attached to this thing because it had a personality.
Hmm. It may have even been that they were trying to make the point too that like he was so caught up in what he was feeling and kind of mad at her because she kept sabotaging his relationship, that he was like, "No, Weibo, this is real human stuff. You don't get that because you're not a human." But then after she was dead, he realized, like, "Oh, you know what? She actually was special. I could fix her, but it wouldn't be her anymore. It would be a new program. That there was something that was special about her program that I don't even know how it happened." So maybe that's what it was supposed to be. So
And
it's
then
kind of
she says
interesting.
she gives him the gift of knowing that almost about him. And
Hmm.
she saved it on her own, which means she's above just a regular AI. She did something
Hmm.
above
Yeah.
to help him without him asking it.
Hmm.
Um, that's like if our little AIs start, we're currently working on a gift for us that we
Hmm.
have no clue, and it was trying to make it special,
Hmm.
um, and we didn't ask it to. And if
Yeah.
we open up our chat GPT next time and it said, I thought you would appreciate this, and it like might even have scary deep reference,
Like,
art,
whoa. Yeah.
and you're just like, okay, I think I just want you to calculate for me for now
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. But it is kind of funny how the movie doesn't lean too heavy into the AI to human relationship thing, but it is funny how like you can kind of connect with funny little things in a weird way because I played the Sonic Adventure game, Sonic Adventure 2, and they had these little things called chows that they were like these little almost like a
Chow?
digital, yeah, almost like a little digital pet thing. They would be in
Oh,
an
like
egg,
Chias.
they'd hatch and then you'd feed them and what you fed them would determine how they would grow up. So you could choose what animal traits you wanted them to have.
Come on.
And
Did you ever have one of those Gigapets or whatever?
I always they were everywhere when I was a kid. I heard about them, but I never had one for myself.
They're
Um,
kind of similar, where you kind of have to like look like tend to it every day and feed it.
mhm.
And it grows
Yeah,
and stuff. Like,
because these little things you'd feed them and you'd have to play with them and you named them and everything. But like um, you could also lose them. You would have like sometimes uh, like if you weren't careful with them, they get kind of messed up, and then you'd have to basically kind of like delete it. But then they'd make it this sad little thing of like, well, your little Chow is going away, and you'll never see him again. And they'd put this little like, you know, the little pole with like the little bag of like, here's my stuff because I'm running away. They would put that on it, and they'd like have him turn around. And he had like these tears in his eyes, and they'd make you feel so guilty for deleting the little Chow thing. So it's like you would get this funny that you'd feel like it was like a real little pet, and it's like I've seen so many people that are like my age and even a little older being like, they need to do it like a VR chow garden, like with advanced like AI chows, so you can just be there and play with your little chows. And it'll be
Oh,
such
they
a fun
will.
game.
I think
And
robots are kind of becoming the new, like like pe- folks with pets. I know I was like this. Is like pets are emotionally, like they are what they are for us, and
mhm.
um, I think we're about to get a lot more AI Furbies. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. And I guess the good thing about like a little AI critter pet would be like it wouldn't die, so you wouldn't have to have that kind of uh pain when you're a kid anymore. But because that's pretty hard when you lose a pet. So, but if
yeah,
it's like a little digital AI critter, then you don't have to
I
worry
don't
about that,
know.
I guess.
I don't know. They may actually start to make that more realistic.
Give it a life cycle on purpose just to be like, well, here you go, kid. You got to learn about it sometime.
Yeah, to prepare children. It's like almost because we're like we're always going to be heading into a future. It's never going to be the same as now. Um, we're always going to be going somewhere different. So I think that uh, I don't know if there always will be, the same ways of us understanding how the world works.
Mhm.
Because we do have stories and movies for these reasons, so that we can actually kind of like make sense of the world, and their comfort for us, but they're also emotionally educational. Um,
Mhm.
they can and inspiring. Um, like when you watch Rocky, it gets you prepared for like being like, all right, if you're going through it and it's tough, whatever, you got to keep going. You got to get back
Mhm.
up. It's
And it also makes you
or
think like, man, I'm getting fat. I need to work out. But
that too, and that can be a good thing too, to get us like, yeah, because I do understand that notion too of like physical health can actually help, and like sleep and stuff comes better when you're making your body and mind tired. I think that's a good thing too. Is like I've been reading more in these recent years than I did as a kid, and I'm noticing it actually helps me set a nice day up too. So like when I get up in the morning and I go outside, I don't look at any screens. When I wake up, and I have no social media, this helps as well, and except for YouTube, of course. But I go outside and put my feet in the grass, and I look up, and I see sky, I see something green, um, and it actually helps my thoughts. It actually helps
mhm.
settle me down and have a nice strong trajectory for the day. Um, and I think that, yeah, movies help do that for us too. They can help prepare us mentally. And I know the soundtracks from like Batman Begins and stuff like that,
Mhm.
I will listen to that stuff when I need to kind of get back on track. um,
Mhm.
One of my favorite tracks is like Book of Eli and Panorama, if y'all remember that soundtrack. It's super good, but it transcends you back to like, I don't know, meaningful perspective of reflections and stuff. And I don't know, it prepares you for it's why we watch this stuff. I think it's why we like to watch it, not just for
Yeah.
escape.
Mhm. Speaking of
Help us.
soundtracks too, I was thinking. I just kind of thought too. I noticed another similarity the with Danny Elfman's score with Flubber. Um, there are tones of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man when
Oh
Peter
yeah.
Parker's getting all inspired looking through the thing to buy a car and
Yes,
designing
you're
his
right.
Spidey suit. There's a bit of that going on whenever Robin Williams is like in his little like inventor mode, because it's like it's this light-hearted but like I'm on the verge of greatness kind of music, and there's a little sprinkling of that in there. And
which is
Danny
magical.
Elfman,
I find that stuff magical.
yeah, Danny Elfman is one of my favorite composers. I've always loved the scores he does because he has such a whimsical vibe with what he does, and really brings stuff to life in a fun way because he uses a lot of choir and chimes and bell and um, different instruments that like a lot of modern composers don't bother to use anymore because it's like, well, that'll make it sound too. I guess like they think it sounds too old fashioned or too much like, oh, that'll sound like an old Disney movie. But he's like, no, I want it to sound like an old score. So he likes to use those classical methods instead of just like using a foghorn and some synth like a lot of modern composers do. Um, but
I think it's so funny. The Flubber, the basketball game, it's like it just made me think about all the fun music with all of that stuff. And like that game is so funny. There was always a big basketball game to settle everything. It was like in Space Jam too. It was also like
mm-hmm.
that. It's just it's
I'm kind of wondering if it's like, did somebody working for those movie studios back then, did they like basketball, or is it just like a basketball court is the easiest type of sport to fill an arena of extras with? Just like it's a nice wide flat thing that's like, okay, we can get story through here because you're just kind of bouncing the ball back and forth and shooting it. It's not a super complicated game, so you can get your actors up to speed on that pretty easy. I don't know. It's kind of it's there was a lot of basketball back then. Like they even did like Air
Airbud.
Bud. That was another big basketball thing. Come to think of it, this was the 90s. It might have partially been the popularity of Michael Jordan inspiring all the basketball and everything cuz like he was like the guy back then. And
Like Mike. Yeah, they did like
yeah,
Mike.
so it might have been like, hey, the kids love that basketball thing. Put some basketball in that kid movie because that'll make it work. Because that's kind of how studios think
I'm sure
sometimes.
that's what
Looks like he's frozen up a little bit. He's in Australia,
they did.
Are you back? I think he's still glitching a little bit. Oh, thank you, Happy Bear. Just donated. Thank you very much for the support, buddy. I really appreciate that. It's good to see you. That's our admiral there. Let me click on that. There we go. He just gave us a super sticker. So thank you very much for that, buddy. He's been a longtime supporter of the channel, and we really appreciate him around here because he's helped make a lot of stuff possible that I couldn't have done any other way. So really grateful for that. Um,
Good man, Bear. Thank you very much.
yeah. So, but yeah, it's fun thinking back to. I know this has kind of gone kind of off the rails a little bit, thinking about just the 90s in general and philosophy and all that kind of stuff. But um, I think I think that was the interesting thing about 90s movies, though, was like there was so much heart in them, and they would go ahead and put things in there. They'd sprinkle it in to where it's a fun movie, but it could make you think about certain things as well. And eventually, we'll get back there to where movies are doing that again, and I think that'll be cool when we're back in that type of time frame. So let me kind of scrolling through some of the comments here to see. Sorry, I haven't been answering back to a lot of different people that are in here, but there's been a lot more comment activity than I was expecting. So I'm not used to doing live streams. I'm used to answering comments after my videos have been posted. So, um, but let me see here. Have we cleared up?
Aside from drawing, is this
Um,
check?
I think you're kind of going in and out. Are you back? Kind of moving and you're kind of freezing. I think you were asking, aside from drawing, is this the only live stream I've done?
I'm yes.
Yes, that's the question. I think I did one live stream where I was showing off my dinosaur bone collection. I don't have any real dinosaur bones, but I have a lot of like replication stuff. Other than that, yeah, I've only been doing like kind of drawing live streams. Actually, I actually did a short animation live stream last Wednesday, um, showing people some of the inking and coloring process on the Scarecrow film. I was doing some of the final line work and colors on those little squirrels that I had animated. So that was fun. It's kind of impromptu, so it didn't really get very many views. But oh yeah, yeah, the Eternal Deathrex said I did it like a video game as well. Yeah, I did um, Gunstar Heroes. That was like my favorite game when I was a kid. Sega Genesis game. So I did some
Gunstar
Gunstar
Heroes.
Heroes. Yeah, it was it was a Sega game that was like it was multiplayer, and at the time it was really revolutionary because there were like these four different weapons that you could choose from, and you could mix and match and combine the weapons together to make your own custom weapon. Um, and me and
Oh,
my brothers
cool.
played that like all the time. Um, and we would just kind of make up our own story while we played it because it was just old video games didn't have much of a story. Um, so we would just kind of play and talk out a big space story while we were playing this game where you're shooting robots, and it was a lot of fun. It was a very cool game. Still one of my favorites. So, but
Well,
let me see.
maybe we'll in the, hey, thank you, man.
Oh, thank you very much. Let's highlight that question real quick. I still have a DVD of Flubber, such a childhood gem. Appreciate you boys. Thank you very much for the support, Zach. I really appreciate that. Um, yeah, it's you know, there's something about a movie that you see when you're a kid. It really will give. I don't know. It's just so much fun to revisit that stuff, and I think it's important because it can kind of it brings you back a little bit to some happier times. Sometimes it can be hard. Sorry, my cat is trying to decide where she wants to go. Go.
Yeah, and
Sorry
we've
about that.
grown. There's a lot of evolution of how movies are made, kind of things to keep an eye out
Mm-hmm.
for, how to strengthen characters that we've left
Mm-hmm.
off in the past. But we when we go back to these movies, it's really fun
Mm-hmm.
to have, yeah, a reminder of the unapologetically undeniable
Looks like it's kind of freezing up again. Sorry, guys.
I may
He's in
have to.
Australia, so the satellites are kind of moving around. I think he's in Australia, so it's we kind of have this problem sometimes when we're doing our chats where it's kind of like eh, eh, it kind of like it freezes up on us a little bit. But you were saying these sort of undeniable kind of films that we watch when we were kids. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. I think you're still going. But yeah, you were talking about the importance of these things we watched when we were kids.
Well, yeah, and what stands the test of time. So when we go back, the things that really do still work, some of the magic is something we can get reminded of because we don't really get it a lot right now.
Hmm.
Um, and so we can take that and tack it on to
Okay, looks like it's frozen again.
uh,
Sorry, it's like right when it's getting good. What you're saying is like it always like, bleep, and then it stops. Um, we have been going for almost 2 hours now. That may be why it's starting to get a little rough. Um, because sometimes the longer you're doing a stream, it gets a little bit uh it's hard for the signal to keep going. It seems like I'm not sure what that is. The bandwidth seems to narrow or something. But yeah, I think maybe we should call it a night pretty soon here. Um, are you back with us?
yeah, but I think you're right. I think it's probably a really good wrap up time, and
Yeah. So real quick, final thoughts on the film, if your connection is stable enough.
I would say I actually do love the performances, not only in Robin but also in the main actress. Obviously, the voice acting is really wonderful, and I actually really quite liked the McDonald, who's the bad guy.
Yeah. Christopher McDonald. Yeah. Shooter McGavin, basically.
Oh, I might should leave
Okay, it looks like we're having some technical difficulties with some of this.
leave it.
Um, he's kind of coming and going. So I think I'll just give a quick wrap up real quick, and then we'll be done for the night. Not trying to cut him off with what he's saying. It's just his computer's kind of uh sort of revolting, it seems like. But yeah, overall, I think I would give this film a solid 3 out of 5 Death Stars. Um, because it's a really fun movie. It's got a lot of heart. It's got great performances. The visuals are really fun with the little flubber guys and the flying car bit. It's still fun and magical. It gives you definite Santa Claus sleigh ride vibes. The movie, The Santa
Yeah,
Claus with Tim Allen. The music from Danny Elfman is great. He's great. Like whatever he scores is golden. But this one, it has such a nice blend of his typical kind of mischievous, quirky fun, but it blends in a little bit more of that classic, heartfelt Disney movie sentimentality as well that you don't usually get from his scores. So it's a really good one. The only reason I give it a 3 out of 5 instead of a higher ranking is just because I feel like the villain could have been a little bit stronger, and I think maybe if they could have tied Robin Williams' character to the Flubber a little bit more and kind of explored how the Flubber was kind of like alive, I think that might have made the plot line just a little bit stronger. But like, it was a really, really good movie, and it was fun revisiting it after all these years. Because, like I said, I haven't been able to see it in a long time, and this is a really good movie, and it's a really good watch if you got a family. Now, I will give a brief warning because like at the beginning of the film, Robin Williams' character, he stumbles into in a life drawing class, and there's like a little joke where it's kind of like, oh, there's naked people sitting there when he's, that might have been the reason we didn't watch this much when I was a kid. Come to think of it, that might have been because I remember that was pretty shocking when we were like, whoa, everyone's covered up, but you can tell they're you know not not exactly dressed. So yeah, so for kids, I would say like that little thing takes a little bit off of it for how much I would recommend the movie. But once you're past that, it's just a fun, wholesome movie for the family. I always try to think of anything that I'm like, well, maybe that's not appropriate for children before I completely recommend a film. But after that one little thing right at the beginning when his character is introduced, it's pretty smooth sailing after that, and it's a pretty good time for everyone involved. And so yeah, so that's another thing that takes a little bit of a takes a Death Star off for me, was because like I think for a kids movie you shouldn't necessarily have a joke like that in there. Um, but for the most part, it's a pretty cute film. And so, oh, thank you again. Zek says, "Hope you boys do another stream this week." We'll definitely be doing more live streams in the future, and uh, hopefully the internet will cooperate more than it's doing in this last half right here. So overall, my thoughts on Flubber is that it's got a lot of magic to it. I don't think it gets enough credit because Robin Williams' performance is really strong in it. There's some very heartfelt stuff with him and Weibo, the little robot, and just the look and the design of it. It's got that great '90s aesthetic where it's like it just is fun to look at. It's a nice, colorful movie. It's shot really well, shot beautifully, and you won't be sorry you watched it, I think. So if you're still with us, any final thoughts? Final thoughts, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's funny you say the who shot it. Dean Cundy
Mm,
uh,
yeah.
did the cinematography. But yeah, I agree. I don't know. It's always, you know me. A, a I have that appreciation of a little bit of the funny of the art room, you
Hmm.
know, stuff. Um, but I do remember that too as a child, being like, "Oh my," like.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think we're
It's
gonna get that at any point. So if you're like 40 years old and you've never seen anything, you're still gonna have that reaction at some point.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's always up for a conversation of when that is.
Hmm.
But yeah, I appreciated this movie. I think it was better than most people like to critique of it. But at the same
Hmm.
time, I understand the critiques.
Hmm.
I actually totally get it. Um, it doesn't quite know what it's wanting to do with itself all the way through. So we're getting this like amazing, interestingly good performance from um, Robin, and then there's just kind of counter tones of
Hmm.
wackiness sometimes or something. But yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
The music's super memorable, and
Hmm.
yeah, I like this movie. I quite like it a lot.
Hmm. Yeah. I'd put it under Hook and Jumanji for the '90s Robin Williams kid movies, but it's right up there. It's right up there in the list of them though. It's a good one, and like I said, I don't think anybody would be sorry they saw it. It'll make you feel good by the time the movie's over, I think. So, um, but yeah, so that was our big tangent filled talk on Flubber. We kind of bounced all over the place and we're a little absent minded with what we were talking about, which hey, kind of fits the theme of the movie, I guess. We kind of were scatterbrained a little bit, but that was my fault. I apologize for that. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you especially to everybody who showed your support in the chat. It was great having this little fun time reminiscing with you guys about this movie in the '90s and everything in general. So if you guys haven't already, go check out Jamie's channel. He has great stuff there, and that's where we'll be posting our next episode of um, Big Kid Energy podcast. Um, do you know what you want to be talking about next time?
I don't, um,
Okay,
but I was thinking about it of opportunity for later would be video games of the 90s.
that would be a great topic. Yeah,
So that could be cool.
that could be
Uh,
coming up in the horizon. Yeah,
yeah. And then
yeah.
we're discussing too about eventually we'll have a home, a proper home for the podcast, and looking to upload all the episodes and then continue on a different platform like Spotify,
Mhm.
and then um, we can be kind of have it a focused spot for it to live.
Mhm.
So yeah, we might be doing that in the near future as well. If you guys have any tips about that, we'll definitely listen, because
Mhm.
it'll be this is all the first for us, so that will also be a first time thing as well. So if you guys have any tips or any other podcasts journeys that you could point us to, yeah, it'd be great to continue being able to have our talks. Because yeah, yeah, it's always so much fun to chat with other friend filmmakers, like our favorite stuff that inspired us, or that we were. I also want to at some point, yeah, it'd be fun to like pick movies or things that we've never seen, and then like, I know that that's what I hope to do on some of my other like visits, or podcast endeavors.
Mhm.
Um, but this is special because we get to go back and harness and taste the magic that we felt back then. So you really do have this interesting. This is something I wanted to ask you. Do you think kids have memorable stuff that they will do like what we're doing, like where we're talking these movies, these games, these whatever? Do you think kids right now that are we're our age
Mhm.
have that going on in their world, and we just don't
You,
know, and then
you
they'll be
know,
talking about their stuff later?
mhm. I really hope they do. I'm not 100% sure they do though. Unfortunately, just because entertainment seems so transitory now, where it's kind of like everything seems that way. It's like it's a blast of like, hey, here's the new thing. Now forget about it. Okay, where's the next new thing? People want everything now, 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 and everything is nothing is entertainment anymore. Everything is content now. What's the next content I can consume? What's the next content? Content, content. So I feel like stuff isn't quite as special as it used to be when we were kids, which is why we remember it. We have landmarks, we have keystones of like when that movie came out in theaters, it was a huge thing. I think some kids have that with some Marvel stuff because the Marvel movies, they seem like they're the biggest things that people latch onto. But even the Marvel movies, 99% of the time are kind of like it's leading to like what's the end credit scene going to be, because what's that going to lead to, because that's going to be the preview of the next one. So like you're
Yeah.
not going there necessarily to see like, oh boy, the new Doctor Strange movie, I've been waiting for this for like all year. It's like I wonder what the end credit scene of Doctor Strange 3 is going to be, because they might be introducing Wolverine or something, because that's what I heard on Twitter, and that's more the conversation, not even what Doctor Strange is about. It's what his end credit scene is going to be about. So it feels like entertainment has shifted to where there isn't really a staying power. So I don't really know if kids do have stuff they're going to look back on, or if it's just like a broad strokes. Oh, remember when the Marvel stuff was popular? And it's like, oh yeah, which one? Then they won't even be able to keep the movie straight because it's like there are just so many of them, and they just go to the next one. So I don't know if kids have entertainment they can really latch on to like we did. Um, but it would
Do
be
y'all
cool to make
remember?
some for him.
Y'all remember Eternals?
Yeah, yeah, like
No,
that one
no,
is.
no.
Yeah, yeah. I doubt anyone's going to be remembering that movie in 20 years, being like, "Yeah, that was such a milestone in my life." Because I remember who my girlfriend was. I remember, what grade I was in. Whatever. It's like they're not going to have this big moment of looking back on Eternals because it
Well,
kind of
it's
came
funny
and
because
went.
I actually was like one of the really weirdly rare folks who kind of, I remember the night I watched it. I remember at the theaters, I was like, yeah,
Mm.
I kind of enjoyed it. And it wasn't, I, I may not ever watch it again because I might change my opinion. But I remember I remember watching that one, and I thought, well, I've seen a lot worse. Like
Hmm.
there's a lot worse than that
Yeah.
in the whole Marvel putouts. But
But that's
I know,
sad. That is sad though that your only thought was like, could have been worse. It's like,
oh,
when that's what you can say about it, it's like, huh,
oh,
you know.
that's how I go about Star Wars now.
Hmm.
It's not about how good it is; it's about how much did it not piss me off. Like I'm just
Hmm.
like,
Like,
I don't
okay.
even watch them now. I don't even watch any
Uh-huh.
of it because I just really I I, I have nothing to bond over. I have
Hmm.
they're clearly not caring if it came from anything that is derivative of the original material, and that's
Hmm.
I'm not fighting it. I'm not even trying to fight. I'm just acknowledging it because they've
Yeah.
been very open about that, where it's like they're not even trying to
Hmm.
make it not, you know, ha- they're deviating unapologetically from inspired source material of the IP itself,
Hmm.
which I find strange. I just find it, but
Yeah.
I do believe we'll have good steps back with original IP and all that kind of stuff. I think. Oh, a separate channel. I don't know about that. Could be at some point for YouTube stuff. But for sure, Eternal Death Rex, uh, a new home to do this stuff. So via via the old Spotify
Yeah.
for creators.
Yeah.
Um,
That'll be where the
oh,
Big Kid Energy podcast goes, just in case anyone
for
doesn't know
big kid,
what we're at.
yeah, for big kid energy. I'm sorry, not for today we're actually on David's channel. This is streaming live on David.
Yeah, we
On
usually stream
David.
over there on his, but this was just kind of like we thought we'd do something fun and special this weekend. So we'll see how this does. I'm not sure because usually I
Yeah,
get views later on. So we'll see how many views this one gets because I don't usually have a 2 hour video up on my channel. So we'll see. But
they might
but
love you
yeah,
for it.
who
The
knows?
algorithm,
Who knows?
the algorithm gods may favor you, David.
Hopefully, fate will smile upon me and
I think I have fallen out of graces with the algorithm gods, and I wouldn't say
yeah,
I fell. I jumped away, but
yeah. They've never noticed me, unfortunately. Um, but maybe that'll change someday. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see.
don't do it for the algorithm.
Yeah,
That's
gotta do it
why
for the love of the game.
you gotta do it for the love of the game, and then people who love the game will find you.
Mhm. If you build it, they will come. To quote another '90s movie. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, so that was our very roundabout. Maybe we should just call it like a roundabout review. I don't know, but that was our discussion on Flubber, and we hope you guys enjoyed our uh, our chat here. Thank you guys for being in the chat, talking with us and talking with each other. That's been really cool to see. Everybody having fun, reminiscing about the good old days. Um, but I think I'll let everybody get going for tonight, just so you can get back to what you're doing, because it's about 11 o'clock where I am right now. I don't want to take up too much of anybody's evening. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll let you know. And we'll do something else like this. I'm sure we'll discuss other movies together at some point on here, but like we'll also be doing it on the podcast as well. So anything you want to pitch or say before we sign off?
Yes, that I am never gonna pitch again in my life. Ever. I I like I think I have replaced the word pitch with present.
Ah,
Never pitch to anybody. They should, if anything, let the money or whoever or whatever pitch to you. But even then, yeah. Sorry, I'm just like really like hung up on the pitch thing because I that's a big part of what I kind of have finessed with Hollywood. It's like,
Mm,
why pitch to the people who don't even know what they're doing?
that's true.
Like movies in the sense of
Mm,
like. So yes, I would present to you guys because you guys get us, but pitching, nah. I'm done pitching. I I want I want to do what I do with David, which is we show up, we talk, we have an open channel, and then we go organically. Oh, that works for both of us. Let's try that out. Let's do it.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, I
We got some, yeah, we got some big cool things coming down the road
we
that you
do.
guys aren't going to want to miss, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Um, I know I probably say that like every time. I know I've been ending a lot of videos with like, we have a lot of exciting things coming up in the near future. So, but it's true. It's like it's just kind of, there's such big things that it's not something I can make a weekly video on like every week, because there's so much work and so much preliminary behind the scenes to get all the puzzle pieces in place before we can start playing. We're still setting up the game board with a lot of these before we can jump in and start playing. But once we get going, it's going to be awesome. And
Yeah.
so you can say you knew us when, I guess, if you're in the comments. So um but yeah, I guess we can sign it off for here. I've only been on other people's podcasts, so I'm not used to being the one having to figure out when to end it. So this is very unprofessional, but thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you very much, Jamie, for dropping by and talking with us. This has been a lot of fun, as always. Um,
Always.
I always appreciate you taking time out of your day. I really do, because I know you're a very busy guy. Um, and I want to respect your time. So thank you for dropping by. Thank you, everybody in the chat. And we will see you next time. So stay safe out there. Dream big. Go after what you're dreaming. Put in the work and make stuff happen. Don't wait for someone to make what you want to see or read. Do it yourself, because the big studios, they're not doing it. We need that inventive spirit to come back of like, hey, let's just make something happen. And
Yes.
you never know. You never know what'll happen when you take those steps out and just start creating something. Even if it's just for yourself to have something that you like. But I really do feel that when you step out and start creating things, you will find other people that will be drawn to what you're doing, that share your goal, and doors will open up. So, all that to say, keep being awesome, keep dreaming big, and we will see you next time. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you later.
Peace.